And we are joined via Skype by political analyst Professor Dirk Kotzé. Prof, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much for giving us your time, as always, here on SABC News.
Thanks very much.
Now, all right, so it does seem that the step-aside issue is causing some sort of tension within the ANC. We don't have official word on the issue, and I'm sure you heard that clip by the spokesperson, Pulemabe, kind of dodging whether or not there are tensions within the party or not. But it is quite clear at this time. I mean, there's no doubt that there are those that are for it, and there are those that are against it. How should this issue ultimately be dealt with? Because what applies to one must then apply to all, and I wonder if that's an issue that is one of the big issues when they're discussing the step-aside rule.
Yes, if we just go for a moment back to the previous NEC meeting, there they acknowledged that they discussed it. They also announced that they will take it to the provinces for discussion, and then it will be finalized by the National Working Committee of the ANC. So this discussion, I guess, was a report back from the National Working Committee in order to finalize it. The fact that the spokesperson is saying they haven't discussed it, I think, is maybe not an accurate reflection, because it's public knowledge that they've discussed it in this meeting, and that there are certainly differences of opinion. There's reports about certain persons' input, like former President Mbeki, Joel Netshechenge, and others. So certainly it's not hidden that this is one of the very important but also at the same time divisive issues in the NEC at the moment. I think the main point about this is not so much the principle, because the principle was accepted by the ANC at their national conference in 2017 already. It's about the practical implementation of it now, and who's affected by it, and what will be the steps, the enforcement of this. And I think the fact that it's not done in a sort of a theoretical way, but it is within the presence of a very specific case, and that is of the Secretary General, Ace Magashule. That complicates the matter tremendously. And because it goes to the very essence of the ANC, it's about the two main sort of power blocks within the ANC that's really affected by this. So it becomes, in a sense, not a discussion about the principle, but rather about who is in the dominant position in the ANC and who will ultimately prevail. Because we also know that quite soon, I mean, the National General Council is supposed to be convened around about May, and it has been said by many that will be another opportunity to test what is the internal dynamics within the ANC. So this decision or this discussion certainly is situated within a context that one has to take into account, and not simply focus on the issue itself.
Yeah. Prof, then, you talk about the fact that the principle has been accepted, as we all know, and the issue then now being the issue of implementation. Why is it so difficult then to implement? From where I'm sitting, it seems relatively easy. If anybody, has any sort of charges or should be up against, the law is being said to have done wrong, they should step aside until they are cleared. So what is the difficulty in implementing? Where does the difficulty then come in that issue, in that statement, in what was said or what was accepted? And surely when that resolution was accepted, there were guidelines as to how implementation would then be, how it would be done. So I'm trying to understand what is difficult about implementing this.
Well, I think the main point about this is a political party, like any political party, is by definition a group of people who are very much involved with power, political power. So that's very much a definition of what a political party is. And it is about internal relationships within those parties, any party, not only the ANC. And I think what is at stake here is that if the Secretary General steps aside, the group that were supporting him, and including President Zuma, will lose to a large extent their institutional power in the ANC at the center, and that means the office of the Secretary General. For them to be able to be in a competent position within the ANC, it's for them absolutely important that they maintain that institutional power, that they have that presence and influence in the ANC.
Yeah.
The moment Ismagashule steps aside, it will be seen as a defeat for them. It will be seen as that they have by implication conceded that he is guilty of what he is accused of at the moment. And any sort of possibility for them to maintain their position within the ANC, their positions either in the NEC or in other positions in Parliament and so on, will severely be curtailed by this step. There's very much symbolic value for the dynamics within the ANC, and that is what they try to protect at all costs. In a sense, the fact that President Zuma already appeared, he didn't appear, but his case was at the Constitutional Court. The fact that they are now waiting for his sentence was already the first major step as a setback for this group. And if this happens now, shortly after this developments with President Zuma, it will be a major setback for this group. And that is why they try to protect it at all costs. And therefore, what we are seeing is that because of the internal dynamics of the NEC, who wants to reach always the top of a consensus, I would call it a sufficient consensus. They just have to oppose as much as possible. They don't have to have a majority there, because it looks like President Ramaphosa has a majority on this issue. But because they don't have sufficient consensus, therefore they cannot take a decision.
Yeah. Prof, there are many possible scenarios of how this all could play out. And very interestingly, you talk about, this group supporting the SG, wanting to maintain this institutional power. Well, the ANC NEC is meeting again later this afternoon. We're expecting around 5 o'clock to further, of course, discuss the issue of the step aside and how it will be implemented and so forth. There are these scenarios that I'm talking about, and one that I've kind of spotted in discussions was where some are saying that Ismagashule and those who support him, as you've put it, I've put it here as his allies, may want to then, resign en masse and then collapse the NEC to force some sort of early elective conference. Is that a viable option, if I can put it that way, for that particular group? Or what are some of the other possible scenarios that you see this ultimately playing out? Because at the end of the day, there's no part of this faction, there's no group in these factions that wants to lose. I mean, this will really determine who really has the upper hand, won't it?
Yes, indeed. And I think none of the two main formations would like to see that the other group disappear, because ultimately the ANC is also going to the next election, the local government election. And at the 2016 election, their majority was 54%. So it's not a very wide margin in terms of a majority, and they have to protect that at all costs. At the same time, none of the parties want to break away from the ANC, because that will put them in a weak position. If you compare it with COPE, when they broke away from the ANC in 2008, look where they are today. When the EFF broke away, they are now only a 10% party, if one can put it in that, compared to the ANC's almost 60%. So any person with political ambitions don't want to move away from the ANC, because that's where the opportunities are.
Yeah.
So in order to decide to break away will be an absolutely principled position to which they have been pushed to such an extent that they will say, I give up actually my aspirations within politics to a large extent. So this will be only the ultimate or the final decision when there's no other options left. To collapse the NEC, I don't think that's a viable option also, because the ANC's constitution is saying that persons can be appointed in the meantime, co-opted to fill vacancies. The National General Council can also fill vacancies. So it's not as if there's a constitutional crisis within the ANC if that happens. So I would say what we are going to see is that this power play is going to continue for a while, but with the main consideration or the main objective to try to protect Ismagashule at all costs, so that he doesn't have to vacate his seat, which provides, as I've said earlier on, really the power base for this group within the ANC. The moment they lose that, then they are much more on thin ice in terms of their own future. So, in a sense, the options are very limited. I think what we are seeing at the moment, they will push that as far as possible to see, it becomes actually a test of which one will give in first. And instead of taking alternative decisions or alternative steps and moving away from the ANC.
Yeah. All right, Prof, always a pleasure having you here with us. Thanks indeed for your input on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's Professor Dirk Kotzé, political analyst. They're weighing in on the step-aside issue that is currently being discussed at the ANC NEC. They will be reconvening at 5 p.m.